Today's sponsor of the podcast is our friends 13. It is a high quality clothing line made by high quality people. From their t-shirts, their hoodies, their sweatpants, everything fits really nicely. They've been a longtime supporter of the show and I love everything that they put out. I'm telling you, the people behind the scenes are just wonderful people. So you gotta go support them. Check out their website at thur13en.com. Pick yourself up a t-shirt, maybe a hoodie. Just make sure you use the code word CoryCast at checkout and you're gonna save yourself a little bit of money. I am here in the RedHouse Performing Arts Center here in Syracuse, New York. I just got done interviewing Franklin Fry, the man behind the show, and I am blown away at the amount of things that the RedHouse does here for the community in Syracuse. I didn't know this place existed, and Franklin mentioned that that was one of the biggest hurdles of this place, was just letting people know that we have a performing arts center here in Syracuse. The amount that they do is just absolutely mind-boggling. Education, career paths for anybody in the performing arts. And it's not just actors, it's the sound engineers, the stage managers, the prop production, all of that kind of stuff that goes into running a show, which for me is a world that I've never been fully exposed to. So it was a really cool, eye-opening conversation that I learned that Franklin is the perfect man for this job because he's energetic, he's charismatic, and he really cares about this place, this non-for-profit, and the community as a whole. He's looking for all these different avenues to help generate funding, and all the shows that they put on here is really cool. So I'm gonna put their website, their social media, all the links in the description below. I promise you are not gonna wanna miss some of these shows that they're gonna put out here this next coming season. They even have like summer camp programs for kids. I mean, you name it, they pretty much have it. The work that Franklin's doing here at the RedHouse Performing Center is mind-boggling. So I hope you get a chance to check them out and at least support them. Let them know Cory sent you. If you're watching this on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave a comment below if you've ever seen a show in the RedHouse. I would love to see what shows you have seen in the past because I did not even know this place existed until recently, so shame on me. And I am happy to present this really cool, awesome interview with Franklin Fry. So with this new system, I'm able to like record on the device, record on my phone and my camera, and save all these files because the first one I did, I lost one of the files and I was kicking myself. Yeah. But thanks for doing this. I really
you're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
No,
Yeah.
thank you for this opportunity.
Do you want to introduce yourself, kind of what your job is here?
Certainly. Franklin Fry, Executive Director for the RedHouse Arts Center. Been here just over a year.
And what did you do before you got into this position?
So I moved up from New York City about 12 years ago to become Executive Director for the American Heart Association.
Whoa.
And I was in charge of a territory that ranged from Watertown down to Binghamton, and then during the pandemic, parts of Pennsylvania. And loved the work, but then this opportunity popped up and said, all right, I'll go ahead and do it.
How different are the two jobs?
They're actually more similar than one would think.
Yeah.
The mission of each is different, but how they need to operate is the same. Both are based upon an extraordinary partnership between volunteers and staff. And that meaning, if I as a staff member am trying to get something done, a program, raise money, whatever it may be, I can get this far. If a volunteer is trying to get something done, maybe they can get this far. But when you combine a volunteer's passion, connections, different sections of the community that they may be able to represent and reflect, and then you partner that with the expertise of staff who are, this is what we do as a living, that's where you get real success. So I'd say that's where the two of those job opportunities completely overlap.
That's very interesting because I wouldn't think there are any correlations between the two.
Yeah. The mission is obviously different.
Right.
Heart Association focusing on health, cardiovascular health, stroke. RedHouse Arts Center focusing on performing arts education. But any nonprofit is pretty much based upon, its success is really how do you connect to the mission and what you're trying to do to the broader community, how are you trying to get buy-in, and therefore support.
What is the mission statement for Red House?
Mission statement is to provide an experiential performing arts center that provides Central New York opportunities for extraordinary arts and performing arts education.
I was very ignorant to all the programs that you guys offered until when we came here for the RPAC event, and you were walking us through all the kids programs and even like adult programs too, right?
It's it is remarkable. And I knew some of what Red House did before I started, but it blows me away. And what I have found is anyone who comes through our doors and hears about what we do is also blown away, just because we have been, so we're right on South Salina Street, the edge of downtown, and 43,000 square foot facility with parking underneath, very accessible, and people still don't know that we're here. Yet we've been doing productions here since 2018.
That was 2018 was when you made the move into this building.
Correct.
Right?
We were in the old space over in West, where Wonder Bar used to be. That's where Red House started, that 3-story brick building at West.
When did it start?
That started in 2004. We're in our 20th anniversary this year.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, very cool. So we founded in 2004 over there, and then purchased, this used to be the Sibley's building, the old Sibley's department store. And in 2014, Red House purchased the Sibley's building to start the process of reconverting it into a theater for us and performing arts center, and then also corporate floors above us.
How long did that process take? 2018 was when you moved in here.
Well, in 2014 we purchased the building. 2018, our space was completed and we were able to move in.
Yeah.
Then the rest of City Center, the building around us, the 4 floors above us, the rest of that whole Sibley's footprint, that didn't get fully completed and ribbon cut until last year, 2023. And that was delayed due to construction, COVID, all those pieces. So it's 2 to 3 years behind schedule, but it is now, City Center is open. And
with COVID, it pushed a lot of people back 2-3 years.
Exactly, exactly.
When you transitioned into the new space, what was like the biggest hurdle?
I think the biggest hurdle we have is a 43,000 square foot facility with 3 performance spaces, multiple rehearsal studios, sound recording studio, professional full-out scenic shop, costume shop. To keep that open as an operational business, especially coming out of COVID, getting people re-engaged with going to the theater, being comfortable in the theater, all of the educational programming we're doing in the schools, getting that back on track after COVID wreaked havoc upon the educational community. That's been the biggest challenge, is getting things back, I shouldn't even say back, back to where things were in 2018 and 2019.
Do you feel like you're close to that?
We are moving forward without a doubt. There's been so much focus on this property around the building itself, and there had been less focus on operationally keeping the space active and funded. And we have a revitalized board, our revenue streams are all up, our ticket and subscription sales are skyrocketed over last year because people are now comfortable, ready to be back in theater. Our summer camps are up 30% over last year, so people are now really re-engaging with us, and we're now becoming a part of their annual experience, because during COVID, everything became only what you can do, when you can do, and spaces like this are sort of based upon people having buy-in 12 months out of the year in terms of what we do.
Do you think it's because people are more comfortable with COVID, or do you also attribute it to other factors?
Certainly the community, I would say, was led through COVID, and this sort of is where the Heart Association hat comes in, because as a health organization, I was a part of some of those COVID briefings regularly. And
that's right. That was the same time you were at the American
exactly.
Heart Association, right?
And I am very proud of how this community responded to COVID, relied upon the science, followed the science, listened to the science, and as a result, we kind of, I think, weathered it better than others. But where we are now, so I think people, when they hear where things are, they trust the word that they're getting, because they were getting honest and truthful information during the pandemic. But I'd say the biggest thing is now people are paying attention that we are here. We had sort of people lost sight of us.
Did you do anything different to
Focus
increase
social media, better use of social media, renewed recruitment of board members. So a third of our board has been recruited in the last 12 months. 2/3 of the board has been recruited in the last 2 years.
Wow.
So new people,
fresh
new
ideas.
Messengers, and also just fresh messengers. People who now are tapping in their networks, their corporate networks, personal networks, social networks, are now being connected to ours. And so we're starting to see, so our social media feed and followers is ramping up.
Right.
And with that attention, people then come in, and we do a very good job of creating a space where people, they feel like they're part of a RedHouse experience more than just coming to see a play.
And do you attribute that to the fresh board?
I'd say a combination of all. Our artistic director this year just took things to a whole nother level with the 23-24 season that just ended. Each production had a vibe about it that reached different pockets of our community, and the community responded. They're like, whoa, Streetcar Named Desire? That was a fascinating production. Let me see what's next. Inherit the Wind, a courtroom drama from the 1950s about a court case from 100 years ago. You would think it would be dry as toast, right? And instead, it sold out because the themes that were being expressed were not only pertinent in terms of who gets to decide what's being taught in schools, who gets to decide what school books are being read, but also how we do theater is a little different. For Inherit the Wind, 11 of the jury members are non-speaking. So we filled it with local teachers and local lawyers.
Whoa.
So that as you're watching it, you're going, this is my community, and this could have been in my community, so I need to be more active in my community. And taking that theater experience, localizing it, personalizing it, and then as they come out into the lobby, we're working with Onondaga Public Library. They do a pop-up library in our lobby where we curate with them, okay, these are the themes we're trying to explore in a production. So our audience members now can go up to that library. If they see a book they want, they just take it, read it, and return it to any library. And Inherit the Wind, for example, had a whole bunch of books about civics, book banning, a whole shelf of books that are typically banned. And then we had a lot of signage on how do you get involved with your PTA? How do you join a school board? Are you registered to vote? How do you share your comments with your various elected officials? And we sort of titled it all with Share Your Voice, Hear Other Voices, Learn to Be a Community, because that's what Inherit the Wind what we're trying to do with some of our shows is not just have them be a standalone piece in a theater, but okay, now take something with you. And how are you going to now change what you do maybe outside the theater because of what you've seen?
You say the art director was in charge of picking
Artistic director chooses the slate of productions that we do.
Nice.
And has a vision for what this space should be and what the voice of RedHouse is trying to say.
Whoa, that's cool. So when they're picking out those specific plays, there's like considerate thought into the themes and
very much
mixing
so.
up.
I mean, you have to, when you look at any theater season, you do have to, all right, I have different audiences I'm trying to appease. I have a budget I have to stay within.
Interesting.
I usually have to do a general crowd pleaser production because we need to raise money. And you have to balance all of these different pieces.
What's a good crowd pleaser?
Well, the typical crowd pleasers tend to be over the holidays.
Oh, okay.
You know, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. This year we're doing The Sound of Music. Ones that people will, I'll bring 4 to 5 people to see it with me. That kind of thing.
That's cool.
And then you have to sort of balance that with what else are we trying to say?
It's interesting. I didn't realize there was that much thought put into like the plays that are picked out. I thought it was really just like, hey, we want to run this one. So
and you have to think about who has the rights because theaters can sort of put holds on rights. And if we say, we're thinking of doing the show, they could say, well, actually, someone within 50 miles of your location is already doing that. You have to go, I don't want to do a show right at the same time another theater's doing it. So there's also this extra added piece of choosing a slate that will be available.
When you say like funding's also a big part, how do you guys get more funding? Is it all through
pretty
donations?
much by making ourselves visible?
Yeah.
I mean, I always say if you lead with mission, your funding will follow. People need to see the mission that we do. They need to see how we connect our artistic programs to the educational programming. We reach about 15,000 students through all of our educational programs.
Wow,
the ones we do in Syracuse City School District and Lincourt and some of the other districts, and then also the programs we do in-house.
Wow, that's so many kids.
It's remarkable,
Wow.
the number of people that we reach, and most of them are underrepresented in some way.
Right.
Whether it be economically or due to ethnicity or due to gender identity. And so just making sure, or disability, making sure that people feel like their voices can be heard and seen on this stage so that the audience can feel like, oh, I saw someone that looks like me.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Wow, and you could tell that kind of thought goes into, especially like the jury that you put together.
Yeah.
All
yeah.
local people in the community, which
Yeah.
is so interesting. It seems to be that the guiding post is community and education for you
Without
guys.
a doubt. Those are sort of the two. We sort of look at 5 pillars that sort of hold up everything we do. The artistic season. What makes the artistic season different than, say, other artistic seasons? For us, one thing we're really proud of is the experience that a theater goer will have at RedHouse will be decidedly different than any other theater in our area because we're what we call a black box theater. We can set the staging, the seating up in, we're just a big empty black box.
Right.
Everything in here can be moved. All the seating on platforms, those can be moved. And we do. We move them on a regular basis. So the stage we're sitting in right now is in the round. We're surrounded on all 4 sides by seating for the production that we did of Godspell. And then subsequently we did a production of Tuck Everlasting with Ark of Onondaga. So we have about 300 seats in the theater, but no seat is more than 20 feet away from the stage.
Wow.
So you are more involved with what happens in this space than you would be at a space where, say, your season subscriptions are in row S, 7, and 8, and they're in those same 2 seats for every production. Your distance and your angle to the stage will be the same for every production.
Right.
So we want to take that to the next level through our theater experience by saying, all right, Godspell is a show about parables and storytelling, which is usually done in a circle, in the round. Inherit the Wind, courtroom drama, where you have the jury box. So we had the audience set up, so we had an L-shaped audience, so there was actually a section of audience members directly opposite the jury box.
That's cool.
Just to sort of enhance this. What we're trying to say is this is our community.
Right.
And the jury is a part of our community, and so is our audience. So let's sort of subliminally connect those things.
Right. That blew me away too, is when we first got the tour through here and you were explaining what the black box meant and that all of this stuff could be taken down and we could have a flat stage.
Yeah.
I was blown away at the efficiency of what went into that thought.
Yep.
And that was all part of the planning when you guys were building the new space.
Correct. Our production manager worked with the architects when they were building out the space to make sure it could keep the vision of the original RedHouse to be something that would provide, to be a space where we could provide engaging and experiential theater going and take it to this next level. And so all the details that went into building the space are just remarkable. And that actually is the pillars that I referenced. We have artistic, we have the educational programming. One of the pillars is the facility itself.
Yeah.
43,000 square feet facility right here on South Salina Street. Rentals, whatever it may be, we can use. This is a jewel of a space for downtown Syracuse.
In the east too, correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like you said this is all level with Salina Street, so you can like wheel the stuff off,
yes,
right?
we're all, it is, the entire space is wheelable, whether that be stage crews needing to roll in stuff, because we have some of the Broadway tours that happen around that land at Landmark.
Yeah.
They actually come here for weeks to rehearse here.
Whoa.
So it's easy for them to unload right into our space and load out.
That's a studio crew's dream, right?
Yeah, oh, without a doubt. I mean, they take all of our spaces. They'll do this rehearsal over here, costumes over here. I mean, they will use every inch of our space. But the other thing that connects to is the pillar we have around belonging and inclusion, which is if you are a wheelchair attendee, from the moment you pull into our garage, the moment you leave, you're 100% available to be on your own without any help. That is what true inclusive and accessibility means.
Wow.
So that is huge. And in a space like ours, the wheelchair seating can be pretty much your front row.
Yeah, right.
So wheelchair attendees aren't just being put into the back of the theater, where in many theaters sometimes the wheelchair accessibility seats are. They're the back row where they've taken out a few seats, and you wheel in and you go there because there are steps to get down to the other seating. Not here. We're we're pleased that any attendee, walker, wheelchair, whatever it may be, can have a really good seat to the show.
And I think that's just like one thing that kind of sets you apart from different theaters.
Yeah.
Right? There's probably so many other things. What else would you say separates
Well,
you?
I'd say I'd keep in that pillar of belonging and inclusion, strategic collaborations we do with like Arc of Onondaga. So we have a 11-year history of producing shows on our main stage with ARC actors, people who participate in the ARC programming, whether it be for physical disability or intellectual disability. And we partner ARC participants with mentors who are with them from the very first rehearsal all the way through the performances. And they're just actors.
Nice.
We accommodate their needs without having the theater piece be compromised.
Wow.
And to see ARC performers having the ability to be on a main stage
And act.
and just do what they want to do, what everyone else wants to do.
Right.
And have an audience member who might also be either related to the family or another person with disabilities to be able to see someone with disabilities on a stage delivering lines and doing choreography and all the rest. That is transformative for someone's life.
Yeah.
The last production we did of Tuck Everlasting, we had an actor who actually was in a power wheelchair and spoke through a computer voice on his chair. Wow. And he had lines just like everybody else.
What a dream for him. I'm getting chills.
And for audience members, it makes us realize what privilege we have, that other people don't have that.
1,000%.
And so if we can create a space where some of that is available, that is inclusion taken to a whole nother level. And that is the one that I'm very proud of what RedHouse does.
And you've been doing that for 11 years.
11 years. There was all this notice about the production How to Dance in Ohio that went to Broadway, featuring the cast with autism. That's phenomenal. Don't get me wrong there. Very proud that started at Syracuse stage. But we've been doing these productions for 11 years.
Yeah, right.
And they typically sell out or near sell out. And I always encourage anybody who's interested in RedHouse to especially check out the ARC productions, because it is theater, education, inclusion, all wrapped into one bubble, and you won't really find that experience elsewhere.
And they won't get that experience elsewhere.
Right, not to
I'm
this
getting
level.
Chills.
They get all of our state-of-the-art dressing rooms. They get, we treat it's just production just like any of the other main stage productions.
Wow. And do they get to pick the play that they like? If
We
they have
work
something they
with
want to do?
we artistic and educational leaders. Tamara Underwood, the incredible artistic director, and Peggy Mitchell, the incredible education director, who's been here for 11 years and created our education department. They pick a theater piece that they think would be appropriate, accessible, and if necessary, modifiable in certain ways.
Nice.
To make it accommodating.
That's really cool. You have professionals that can advocate for a group of people who don't usually get that opportunity in theater.
Exactly.
Wow, that's powerful.
And and the inclusion belonging. An example this past season is the production of Streetcar Named Desire. So that is a 1950 Tennessee Williams drama, which is probably still mostly known for Marlon Brando's stage debut and the role of Stanley Kowalski. He put an imprint on that show and on that performance, and then also in the movie version, that 70 years later, people think of Stanley yelling at the top of his lungs, Stella, and it's a play about Stanley's brutality against Stella's sister Blanche and her descent into madness. And Tamar, the artistic director, intentionally cast Stella and Blanche, the two sisters, with two black actresses, just to see how that would change the dynamics of the play. 70 years, Brando and Stanley have hovered over that piece. Just by that casting choice, Streetcar Named Desire became a play about two sisters and how they handle what's happening around them. It changed this American classic in a way that just by looking at it through a slightly different prism was remarkable. So I hold that one up this past year as also one of our best examples of how we look at artistic pieces, how we look at belonging and inclusion, and we don't just do colorblind casting, but intentional casting that may change the piece itself that's being presented.
Wow, Franklin, it's so
Yeah.
it's mind blowing because
It
I'm
is,
like
it
I'm
is.
so ignorant when it comes to like stuff with theater. It's just
Yeah.
it's not my usual realm or cup of tea. I think I've maybe seen like a few plays and maybe a few that Miley, the Baldwinsville school district just put on Matilda.
Yep.
That was amazing. That
Yeah.
was a great play. But really, when you're talking about all these, I just thought like you just pick a play or a
Yeah.
performance that you really gravitate towards. I never think about all of that thought that goes into changing the dynamic, changing the scope. Is that like one of your favorites that you've seen here?
Performances?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that,
probably
that
gonna be
one.
tough.
Well, just again, being someone who started in the theater and appreciating how that piece changed from 70 years of it being about one particular dynamic of these two characters to now being a play about two sisters.
Yeah, with a simple tweak.
Just a thoughtful and an intentional tweak like that. And you mentioned the Matilda. So that's one thing I also like about RedHouse is the collaborative nature we have. So Baldwinsville just did it. We actually did a production at Porter Elementary of Matilda, and we worked with Baldwinsville to borrow some of their Matilda sets.
That's amazing.
And props and things so that we could utilize them at Porter
Props were
Elementary.
huge.
Oh yeah,
I
I know.
was blown
We had to
away.
move them in and out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
And
so
you also
grateful
even-
for that kind of collaboration.
especially between the two rooms, right? There's 3 different theaters.
Yeah.
In between all 3, there is the actual like the crafting room. Like I don't know what you want to
The
call
scenic
it.
shop.
The
We have a
scenic
scenic
right?
shop, and then we also have a costume and wardrobe shop.
That's in the middle. That's the central hub of all 3.
Yeah,
Which
so
is,
that things can just roll out and go into whatever theater they have to
that's
go to.
amazing.
Yeah,
How many people are like employed by RedHouse?
Nowhere near as much as we need.
Yeah.
We have struggled, as all performing arts places have done, coming back from COVID. You know, we dropped out and then got funding to help make up for that, but now that funding has dropped out, so we have to replace that while we're also trying to get everything up and running. The challenge I would say that we face here is, again, people coming in just to see what we're doing. Because once you come in, you go, wow, this is so much more than I ever thought. And it's right here. It's right here in downtown.
Right.
Yeah.
And I under my nose for the longest time until it was put in front of my face.
Right.
And I was blown away at the space. You guys even like rent out these rooms for
Yeah.
different events too,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's one of the pillars is the facility itself, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
So renting space. So we've rented for weddings. We did a commercial TV film shoot in the other theater just the week before last.
Nice.
That will be appearing sometime later this year in our market. The touring Broadway shows will stop here for a couple weeks. Benefits. ACR Health did a mocktail event, and this was perfect for them. It was just so any type of business meetings, oh my gosh, the daytime or breakfast business meeting opportunity is huge because what people do is they'll use the lobby for mixing and mingling coffee and bagels, and then they'll go into the smaller theater because the tech is all here.
Yeah.
All the tech here is no more than 6 to 8 years old. So it is pretty state-of-the-art compared to some of our neighbors. And when we do a meeting, people don't need to bring in any extra AV because we already have it in-house. And so they
That's
get
big.
really cool, slick, very professional sound and lights, microphones, podiums, all the things that you might need to do, say, a corporate meeting or Zoom in and bring in the out-of-town folks to participate, do a TED Talk style. So Center State CEO, United Way, have utilized that capability.
That's really cool. And the functionality of the space really allows for that.
It does.
Do you
It
think,
does.
is that a bigger part of the fundraising, or do you think it's more about ticket
These
sales?
are all,
that
well,
a big part?
any performing arts theater should be looking, or space should be looking, any business should be looking at how do you have multiple funding streams.
Yeah.
So rentals is one of. Then we have the educational camp registrations. Then we have our grants and foundation support. Whether it be grants specifically for the work we do in the Syracuse City School District and the other districts, whether it be foundation support for our ARC production, whether it be foundation support. The best foundation support ever is general operating because it means we can use it just to pay salaries and to keep the lights on. Tickets and subscriptions, corporate sponsorships, all of those different revenue streams come together. And that's how we kind of keep this place open.
It's kind of like real estate. You don't want to just rely on one type of client. You want to diversify your funds a little bit. Right.
Exactly.
Have you done anything that's like outside of the box, that's out of the norm for a performing arts center?
I wouldn't say out of the norm. I'd say what we are, because things paused due to COVID and the construction, we haven't had a formal membership campaign. Most theaters do. Join at this level, get these benefits, this circle or this, whatever level this is, and start becoming a member of the organization. We haven't had that, so that will be something that we'll be rolling out shortly. Wow. Rentals, just double checking what we're charging, and making sure that we're charging market rates so that we can get the revenue that we can possibly get.
Right. Because
there is a cost to us, and we want to make sure that we're seeing a profit from. If someone comes in and says, I want to rent this room, but I don't want any of the platforms, well, someone's got to be paid to move and separate and store all the platforms. Yep. And then someone's got to be paid to come back in and put them back into place. So people don't understand that there are rental costs. Mm-hmm. So I think we've done a pretty good job about saying, this is what it costs.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can find ways to fund those who can't necessarily afford it.
Weddings, businesses, all kinds of different events.
Networking events, whatever it may be.
Interesting.
Again, we have a space that seats about 250. We have another theater that seats about 100. We have a studio that seats about 60. So it's pretty much any size.
Of the three theaters, which is your favorite?
It varies.
It's like a kid. You can't pick your favorite kid.
Well, and each one has its own... Each one has its own specialness. I would love to be able to fill this theater up every time. But we, for example, did a production of Misery. And we did that in the smaller theater because we wanted it to feel a little claustrophobic and tight, because that's partly what the show is about. So we did that one in the other theater.
Wow.
But yeah.
So each theater has its own pros and cons.
Exactly.
To it, essentially.
Exactly. If you're doing a one-man show, you probably might want to do the smaller theater because, again, you may not be able to fill 300 seats over the course of X number of performances.
Right. And the smaller theater's got how many seats?
It varies, again, based upon our setup, approximately about 100 plus.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So you
Inherit the Wind in that space with the L shape that I referenced, that was 140.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Wow. It's really cool. It's interesting how dynamic all of these rooms are and how much thought went into all of the building and engineering around here.
Yeah.
When you look at the RedHouse as a whole, what are you the most proud of?
How we approach performing arts and how we look at performing arts as a mechanism for creating important community conversations, whether it be around civics and book banning, a performing arts center that can truly career path a young performing artist from age 6 to pursuing a career in the theater. Now that our educational programming has been up and running just over a decade, we now know of someone who appeared in one of our camps 10 years ago and what has become of them. And so we have some of these stories, and some of the stories include a Grammy nominee, someone who's now at Juilliard, someone who's at the Globe Theatre in London. We're not saying we created that, but we were part of their career path.
Yeah.
And we'll be a part of the STEAM High School when it opens. So I'm very proud of how we connect the performing artist who wants to learn to be a performing artist with professional training, professional productions that they can appear in, and how they can learn from both professional locals and professional out-of-towners who come in to do their craft.
But it's not just, when we say performing arts, for people who may not be familiar, it's not just acting. There's also so many other jobs.
Yes. We as an economic engine, just on the theater side, hire 100 to 150 people a year to be actors, choreographers, dancers, designers, set design, light design, sound design, costume design, directors, of course, stage managers, crew members, even down to volunteer ushers.
And the training's here in Syracuse, which is crazy, where I feel like in the past, if you wanted to be a sound engineer, You had to go to New York City. You had to like uproot and leave.
Or go somewhere and learn, and then were there job opportunities for you to come back? No.
Right.
And now that we are creating this space where we have this kind of focus on film and television and expanding performing arts opportunities, people can actually start making careers here.
Right. Which did not exist in the performing arts world in Syracuse. Arguably, I feel like, until you guys came around.
We're part of that renaissance for sure.
But maybe just because I've been ignorant to the performing. I know OCC has a really great sound engineering school.
The different colleges, SUNY and Oswego is doing some terrific.
Oswego's got one too.
Creative and performing arts curriculum.
Do you ever partner with the colleges?
We're developing that further. Again, a lot of that took a back seat during the pandemic.
Right.
And so we're trying to sort of reboot that piece, especially as we are nailing down how the STEAM high school fits into all of this, so that we can truly look at all of our educational programming from age 6 to college as one coherent story.
Yeah, how does the STEAM college fit into this?
The STEAM high school?
STEAM
that
high school,
is just down the block from us.
Okay.
So Peggy, our director of ed, has been on the STEAM High School Curriculum Council, and we are anticipating that we'll sort of be their theater lab. And other arts, or the Everson is also participating, and they, so the fact that that high school is going to be so close to downtown arts centers and museums is important, because it means that they have a direct connection. They can just walk to our space for a class.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. And these opportunities were all afforded by like different, almost like networking events, like serving on the board and stuff like that. With your board of directors, how many people serve on that board?
We have 24 voting members and 3 honorary members.
And you brought on a bunch of new people. And it seemed to be like there was an emphasis on like fresh ideas when you were hiring for the board. I'd
say when any not-for-profit's looking to build a board, they're looking at what gaps do they have? What gaps do they have in industries? What gaps do they have in economic impact? What gaps do they have in representation? And I will look at a board the same way. And I would say, okay, interesting. Okay, so we didn't really have any healthcare board members, so that became a priority. In this coming year, we have someone from the healthcare industry. Didn't have someone, say, in marketing and communications. Now we do. Didn't, so even skill sets.
Right. So there was some real thought put into your team.
It's a strategic, because you're building a strategic team, and the board has to be a very key foundational part of building any not-for-profit success.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting, because my friends and I, we do Dungeons and Donations, where once a year, twice a year, we play Dungeons and Dragons live online, and we raise money for different organizations. Mostly it's been the CNY Food Bank. We've helped Vera House in the past, but we talked about starting a 501c just to have our name hung up as a nonprofit, so it wasn't just like 3 dudes collecting money. But I don't think we'd ever have a board of directors behind just the 3 of us.
Well, you don't know what your future may lead.
Yeah, right,
but
true.
You can't do it alone.
Yeah, right.
So the more people that you can get around you and engage and inspire them and set clear expectations of, okay, you want to be on the board? Well, here's what's going to be asked of you. So that you can say, you knew that's what you were going to do, what we were going to ask of you. So don't be surprised when after you're on the board, we're asking you to do X, Y, or Z, because that's part of how we set it up. And then also do a clear job description and clear board orientation so that everybody's on the same page.
Wow. And when you stepped into position, was that something that one of the pieces you looked at as a whole to say, like, how can we change things up?
I knew that was a skill set that I could bring to this organization.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. And how many interviews did you have to go through? Was this a long process?
3, 4.
And then you uprooted your life from New York City.
I did. Well, I did that about 15 years ago. So I was in New York City for 30 years. Started my career in the theater in the city back in the 80s. I went to get my degree at NYU.
What did you do in the theater?
I got a degree in acting.
Nice.
But spent most of the 80s into the early 90s box office, follow spot operating, company management, costume design.
Franklin really wanted to be an actor.
Just learning all of the different pieces in New York off Broadway is filled with all these small black box theaters, 99 seats. And so started there. Then ended up finding that stage management was the skill set that I enjoyed most and I could contribute most.
Whoa.
And started building a career in stage management.
I love there's so many different careers and avenues in performing arts. I didn't mean to
There
interrupt
is.
your story.
So, because people think it's just acting. It's like,
right.
No. In
Right.
fact, I would challenge most folks to understand that the tech positions are ones that probably have more stable careers. Because you could be a technician, a stage manager at a theater for the entire season and do 4 different shows. You're not going to be, as an actor, you're not likely going to be in all 4 shows.
Right.
So it's the tech side of things that tends to have probably, I would say, the more stable career.
Very interesting.
Choices, yeah.
But you started doing the backstage managing thing. You're like, yeah, this is my cup of tea.
I
don't know
enjoy
about that
stage
acting
management. I think is one of, if not the most important roles in any theater production, because you're not creating anything, but you're hearing and a part of all the conversations from all the different designers and the director and the choreographer and what they're trying to do. You manage the cast, and you have to have an understanding and embrace of the big picture. This is what we're hoping to finally complete, while also knowing that big picture is filled up with all of these little pixels of small pictures that also have to be completed correctly, down to where props are laid. Backstage,
a lot of stuff you gotta
there
keep
are
on top
tables that are taped out with a prop in every little section so that people can see immediately, are all props here? And an actor doesn't have to think about, where's this? I just can grab that. So every little detail in a theater has been pre-thought to be efficient and run well.
To make the show go on.
To make the show go on. And then the other skill set of a stage manager is the timeline. You have to manage this master timeline, but know that you have to hit all of these little benchmarks on that timeline if you're going to reach the final goal. And you have to keep the creative types on timeline, which can be a challenge.
Yeah, that could probably be a challenge, right?
But they can't, it's back to that staff volunteer. A creative type needs a stage manager type, because otherwise their vision may not become a reality. They need someone who can say, I want to help you take your vision and create a reality. And the stage manager can't create the piece because they may not have the creative vision behind it in the first place. So those two pieces have to be 50-50 pairing.
Wow.
And then once a show opens, a director leaves. It's the stage
really?
manager who maintains the production.
Oh,
Works with the actors to brush up things that might get sloppy or tighten up some pieces. But
so that was really what you gravitated towards?
I loved that role. I loved that role.
And then what made you transition to the next part?
Employment.
Yeah, okay. That's fair.
had to start thinking, okay, I need better benefits, that sort of thing. So I became a director of special events for an organization in the city called AMFAR, the Foundation for AIDS Research. Its main fundraising mechanism was and is still today major A-list fundraiser galas held in conjunction with film festivals and fashion weeks. So I was going to Cannes for 3 weeks, in Paris and Milan and Dubai and all those places, and it was a phenomenal experience for a certain portion of my life, but then I got tired of the global travel.
I feel like I would have, it sounds really cool on paper, but then when you're doing it every week, you're going to a new place, I feel like it would probably get old.
It gets old. Yeah, I mean, it's cool to be a part of through a couple cycles, but then at some point it becomes, I just want to be home.
Yeah. I want to sit home in my sweatpants and decompress after a show. I don't want to have to fly to Milan.
And then go to Toronto. It's like, okay. And the schedule was back-to-back, different countries, that sort of thing. So I was looking for a quieter existence.
Franklin, you've done so many different positions in the performing
been
arts world.
It's been a long career.
What do you think the future of RedHouse looks like?
I see a vision that I embrace and I share others to embrace, of when we think about a vibrant downtown, and as we hear Micron and others say, for them to recruit people to move to Central New York, there needs to be a vibrant scene for people to feel like it's hip and it's a place to be. many major cities have performing arts centers. Lincoln Center and New York Shakespeare Festival in New York City, Kennedy Center in DC, spaces where there's something happening. And so you may not know what is happening, but you're going to go, let me just check out what's happening at Lincoln Center. And it may be the Philharmonic, it might be the ballet, it might be the opera, it might be something in their jazz, whatever it may be, but there's something happening there. And as RedHouse reaches towards its 25th anniversary, I think that's what the space needs to be. It has the capability for it, just from the different spaces we have available. Mm-hmm. And to have a space where on any given night, something is happening here, and people locally will know, well, I don't know what's happening at RedHouse, but I love the kind of stuff that they have. Yeah. So let me just check out.
So every night you're trying to put out like a new event, or just something to pump.
Just something, or have film festival use our space for a weekend, whatever it may be. To have it a place where people naturally think to look us up as a place where things are happening, mm-hmm. just to say, well, what am I in the mood for? Oh, let's see what's at RedHouse. Oh, look, they're doing a production of one of their youth programs, is having their performance. Let's go check out and see what the 6-year-olds are doing. Yeah, right. Just whatever it may be, but just that's where this place can be. We just have to get it there.
And getting it there just involves getting the word out and just...
Getting the word out, connecting the mission to people, and having people open their wallets.
Yeah, right, because it is a non-for-profit.
That third one is the critical piece, but you can't get that third till you do the first two.
And this is a non-for-profit. Like, this is hard to stress. Like, this is not like a corporation running. This is a community-minded.
Typically, when look to the arts and see how they're doing, because that will indicate how a region or a market is doing with their economy. Because as markets turn, the first things that are deemed as frivolous or extra are the things that are cut, or people cut out of their personal budgets.
But I think it's
arts
so important.
Falls into that category.
It's so unfortunate, though, because it's
100%.
So important, right? Not only just, I think this place offers young minds, different adults, just a vehicle to pursue their theater, their love and passion of theater,
and the skill sets
that they get.
Focus on, well, let's focus the athletic programs because our kids are going to learn collaboration, being a team member, having the end game. That's exactly the skill sets that theater is teaching. Mm-hmm. A props person is just as important as the lead actor, because if a prop is out of place, the lead actor is going to reach for something, it isn't going to be there, and now what does the lead actor do? Every role is equal, mm-hmm. and it's only when they come together that you have a success. So the same skill sets that are touted all the time and justified for keeping athletic funding, for some reason people don't understand, that's what arts do. They give people voices in a very important way, and often if they're entertaining, but they're also challenging. The arts are where we can speak up and say, something's not right here, and we need to pay attention.
And it puts things in a new perspective, whether it be casting sisters in a play, or casting, picking a play specific about banning books. I think it creates a really interesting dialogue for all of us as a community.
Next season, we're doing a production called Le Toit du Mât. French title. Thanks, Tamar, for giving me something with a French title and try to sell it. But Le Toit du Mât, the three Dumas, is what that translates to. The Dumas is Alexander Dumas, who wrote The Three Musketeers.
Ah, okay.
And The Man in the Iron Mask, and all those swashbuckling type things. Le Toit du Mât will be a swashbuckling biographical drama that looks at 3 generations of Alexander Dumas. The author, his father, who was a general for Napoleon, and his son, who was a second-rate author. So it looks at those 3 generations and how they weave, but it will also educate our community that Alexander Dumas was a black Frenchman. His father, the general, was black.
Which was probably unheard of at the time. Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say unheard of at the time, but history has erased that. So we don't have that hero to hold up, that this famed author was a black Frenchman.
During the,
19th century.
Right? 19th century.
And the play looks at his father, who was black, married a white woman, Alexander Dumas, who looked and passed as black, but then his son, who kind of passed as white. So it looks at assimilation, and it looks at these 3 generations of how that cultural norm was changing.
Wow.
While also being a swashbuckling. There's going to be a sword play and dueling.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
That's the piece that next year I'm so excited about, because that's what
you're
RedHouse
already thinking about next year.
That will be happening next February.
Wow.
So
when you're planning for next season, you're like a whole year ahead?
Yeah, tomorrow's already, we've set the 24-25 season, so that starts this fall and runs through next spring. We've set the ARC show for next spring. Tomorrow's already starting to think, well, what follows that? And I will hold up a great statistic. I mentioned our youth camps are up 30%. Our subscriptions for the season we're about to start are up 104% over last year.
Whoa, what attributes to that? Just a careful pick?
Tamar asked me the same question. I said, you produced a season that people were wowed by, and they walked away going, I want more.
Right.
That's what that's a result of. People coming here and feeling, I get now what this RedHouse experience is going to be. It's going to be a show. It's going to include me with the art gallery in the lobby, the library in the lobby, activities in the lobby that will challenge me. We are collaborating with community partners, like we did a book drive for United Way, for Charlie Brown. We did a urban spice drive for Food Bank of Central New York as a part of Godspell. Sound of Music, we're probably going to be doing a teacher supply drive. Wow. And just encouraging, if you're coming to a show, all we do is put it in the email that goes out ahead of time. Hey, we know you have a ticket for next Friday's performance. Please be aware we're doing a drive for Food Bank of Central New York. Please bring dried herbs and spices. Yeah. Just feel connected to the rest of the community. And I think this season people started really understanding that that's what RedHouse is doing. Yeah. And they're walking away going, I'm feeling fulfilled artistically, and as a member of a community.
Serving a community.
And I'm paying half the price of what many other theaters charge. Because we keep our prices low, back to that inclusion and belonging and accessibility. You know, our top price is $40 to $50.
Right. We don't want to exclude the people who...
We don't want to exclude those who can. And then we have school matinees, you know, for $15 to $25.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is there a play that you want to put on that maybe you haven't had that?
I keep my opinions to myself. Every now and then I might share something with Tamar, but I will defer to anything artistic. I will defer to Tamar. Anything educational, I'll defer to Peggy. They are experts and are both unsung heroes in their respective fields in Central New York, and people need to know who Peggy Mitchell and Tamar Underwood are.
Wow, that's beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe not one that you want to put on here, but is there a personal favorite that, like, every time you see it playing, no matter where it's at, you want to go see?
Oh, well, so this is a personal guiding light for me is the Samuel Beckett play Waiting for Godot. That is one that from my very first seeing it to even now, I do pilgrimages to see anything by Beckett. He's the author that speaks to me, but everybody responds to authors differently.
What is it about Beckett that speaks to you?
The humor. And people tend to think of Samuel Beckett's works being bleak. And he calls them tragic comedies for a reason. And I lean on the comedy because when the comedy is done right, it's joyful. And then you walk away with all of these deep, profound thoughts that you didn't realize you were starting to get because you were laughing. And that's the best kind of performance art. Another example here is the production that we just finished hopefully year one. Applications for funding for year 2 and 3 are in process. We got funding from Onondaga County from the pharmaceutical settlement to produce an original musical puppet show about opioid awareness.
I've heard of this.
For grades 1 to 5.
Yeah.
It is age appropriate, it is allegorical, it doesn't reference drug use specifically at all, it doesn't reference Narcan or anything like that. It's an allegorical puppet show with life-size puppets, human-sized puppets, about this fairy who damages his wing and he hears about this magic elixir that'll make him feel better. But the story is really about his friends who start noticing he's acting differently. And they go on a journey for who do we tell? that we see something. So we want to say something, but we don't know who to say it to and what to say, because we're aged one, we're in grades 1 to 5. We haven't figured out how to communicate this yet. So this allegorical puppet show presents these themes. The characters learn, these magical characters learn. They end up meeting this Komodo dragon who at first is very scary, and they learn that that's the librarian at the school. And he's actually the safe one to tell. So it even deconstructs, don't presume, get to know someone before you decide if you're going to trust them. Mm-hmm. And you may be surprised the person you were afraid of is actually the one who you need to speak to.
Right.
And so the students walk away with just these, it's a story. They just enjoy seeing the puppets.
Yeah.
And we send home a booklet that sort of explores some of these themes. So what did you learn about how this character was trying to figure out what to say? But on the back page are resources for the parents on opioid awareness, where to go to for information about opioid use, Narcan, et cetera. So through support from Kinney Drugs and Wegmans, and also work with Prevention Network, we can provide resources. That went, 4,000 students in Onondaga County saw that show this past year.
Wow.
For me, that is theater, education, all of these things.
So many pillars. It's all 5-year pillars.
And educating through entertainment. So the kids are being entertained, and they're not realizing some of these things are starting to feed in the back. So they're laughing and enjoying the puppet show. Maybe 2 or 3 years from now, they'll go, oh, and they'll connect some of these dots, and it might help them say something that maybe they didn't know how to say at the moment.
Wow. And was that an original written play?
RedHouse staff wrote.
How many people wrote?
Composed, directed, choreographed. It is our property, which we hopefully will license for productions around the country.
Whoa.
Another revenue stream.
Interesting. Who would have thought?
Connect all these dots. Yeah.
How many people were on the team to write that?
I'd say the collective creative team on that would say 4 people. The lead director was someone who started actually in one of our youth programs in one of the schools.
Wow. And
10 years later joined us as staff and has now written her own show.
That's cool.
Career pathing and providing educational employment opportunities.
Which is one of the key
with 5 local actors and then local crew. And they literally, in road cases, that's one of the road cases behind you, they'll load up a rental truck, take it to a school, perform in front of the kids, pack up the road cases, bring them back to the theater. And if funding continues for years 2 and 3, we hope to do it at an additional 40-plus sites next year and then the year after.
If people want to get a hold of you or see the schedule, what's the best way?
Best thing is website. With that, 2 things. Social media. Like, follow, share RedHouse on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Those are the 3 primary ones we focus on.
I'll put it in the show description.
That is definitely, so we have people say, where do I learn about auditions? Follow our social media feed, because we post it there first. And then also just the website in general, redhouse.org.
Okay,
redhouse.org.
cool. They can see the schedule, get tickets, all that good stuff.
All that stuff will be there, and make a donation.
Franklin, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, I so appreciate this conversation.
This is really cool, and I can never say I've done a podcast in the middle of a theater before. It's a little intimidating.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's a comfortable space.
Yeah, it's a cool space.
It's a cool space.
And I can tell why you're such a good fit for your job. You're very passionate about what you do and about this space.
I appreciate the compliment. I found a good home.